Want to help the channel? Go to shopclownfish.com where you can check out official Clownfish TV merchandise in our brand new shop. It helps us out. Also, check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/clownfishtv for more art and gaming live streams that we don't do on YouTube. We want to see you over there as well. Now let's get into the video. Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. We're going to check in on Star Wars. I think we're going to call this Force Friday because there really hasn't been a lot of Star Wars news. Star Wars is basically dead in the frickin' water, isn't it? We don't talk much about Star Wars these days because frankly, we don't really care. Star Wars is kind of dead to us and we've moved on. The Mandalorian was a nice little throwback, but for the most part, we feel that Disney has run the franchise into the ground. It's not really worth talking about it other than the drama. So we're going to talk about the drama. Before we get into it, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. Geeky will be back later on today. So we're going to dip in on J.W. Rinzler and some of these rumors about the paranoia, the fear and control at Lucasfilm, that Lucasfilm has changed. Now, we've been following this actually via Ichibaka on Disney Star Wars is Dumb. Go out and check out his blog. He's the one that, as far as I know, put J.W. Rinzler on the radar for a lot of Star Wars fans. Rinzler worked for Lucasfilm for a number of years. He had written a lot of making of books. He has been doing the rounds on podcasts, and he's been trying to talk about his experiences at Lucasfilm and how different Lucasfilm has become under Disney stewardship. I'm doing air quotes, you can't see it. Under Disney's control, imperial control, the imperial control of the mouse. And he said it's a very, very different company. He's talking about how he's had friends leave as soon as Disney came in. The writing was on the wall. He said that his friend left Lucasfilm and suffered less brain damage. Now, the thing is that Rinzler has a non-disparagement clause with the Walt Disney Company, and whether or not it's enforceable, I can tell you that Disney will absolutely do everything they can do to just run the guy out of money if he breaks that clause. So he says he's very leery about what he says publicly. But he does seem like he suffers from a broken heart, that he loved working at Lucasfilm. He loved George Lucas's vision, and that the version of Lucasfilm we're seeing right now is not Lucasfilm. It's Lucasfilm in name only. It's Lucasfilm without George Lucas, and its heart has been ripped out and stomped on. Going out to Bounding in the Comics, they've compiled some of Rinzler's quotes talking about his experiences, and then we're going to talk about how the media is picking up on this rumor that they're going to reset Star Wars. I don't think they're going to. I really don't. I know a lot of people have been talking about it. I don't see how logically they really can do it. It's going to be confusing for the public too. What I think is probably going to happen is they will just sort of sidestep the Kennedy era of Star Wars, if indeed that's what's going to happen, because there's been talk about her stepping down. That I completely believe. Her contract is up next year, and Disney's they're not going to fire her. They're not going to make a big public spectacle of firing her. It's a bad look for them, especially since they're trying to be very progressive. It's a bad look for them to fire a high-profile female movie executive, one who's been in the industry for decades, whose name is on a lot of movies that a lot of people like, who knew that she was going to drop the ball. You know, I was actually excited when George Lucas announced Kathleen Kennedy, because I'm like, yeah, she's worked on everything. She worked on Goonies, and she's worked on Indiana Jones, and she's going to get it, and she doesn't get it. She doesn't get it. All right, so this is coming from Bounding in the Comics. Former Lucasfilm and Star Wars editor J.W. Rinzler describes Disney was all about control, fear, and paranoia. I have to tell you, for many arms of the company, right? Disney is a many-headed beast. It's a very big company. It's actually several little companies under one umbrella. But Disney does control its employees. You see the fear in their eyes when you ask questions that they're not allowed to answer. You see that fear, like behind the smile, you know that there's definitely a fear of the mouse. Former Lucasfilm editor and author J.W. Rinsler, who wrote The Art of Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, as well as the making of Star Wars Revenge of the Sith, recently detailed what it was like under Disney compared to George Lucas. Rinsler, who also wrote and published The Making of Star Wars, the definitive story behind the original film, chatted with the Forcecast podcast about his initial rejections from various Lucas-owned companies, as well as the interview that eventually landed him the position of editor for Lucas Licensing's book division. Much of the beginning focuses on what led to the creation of the Making of Star Wars books. He says that Lucas was a pioneer and early adopter for quite a bit of new technology, including digital filming. He was a pioneer and early adopter. He had kept extensive records for anthropological steak dating back to American Graffiti. That's true. Anybody that follows Star Wars or the making of Star Wars realizes that Lucasfilm had a massive archive of photos of like literally every prop, every creature, every actor from every angle. He detailed his pitch meeting for the making of Star Wars Revenge of the Sith that led to the multitude of other books. And he talks about, working on the prequel books, etc., etc. And he talked about how much autonomy the group had. There was a lot of autonomy. And the idea was, particularly after episode 1, everybody had gotten greedy. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but some people were actually taken aback. I'm going to make $1 billion off of every project I do. So yeah, once they started, once money got involved. Now, Lucas always kind of existed outside of the Hollywood system. And I talked about this in another video where I think the root of the split in the fandoms for gaming and for, animation and for Star Wars is when Hollywood got involved. Star Wars was never designed to be a hit. It was an accidental hit, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And the expectations for the prequels were much, much higher than the original trilogy because of it. And then when Disney came in with the sequels, all they could see were dollar signs. So it definitely changed things. And he talked about how they worked closely with George Lucas, and the company felt like George Lucas. And you can kind of see that. Even LucasArts, any kind of arm of Lucasfilm, Lucas-owned companies kind of had that taste of George. That sounds bad, but it did. It felt like something that George Lucas would give his personal stamp of approval on, even early Pixar, But then he talks about the dark days when Disney bought Star Wars. As reported on Disney Star Wars is Dumb, he contrasted this experience with Disney taking over Lucasfilm. When Disney came on, I will say this, I don't think it violates any NDA. I had been there for 15 years. I worked with George Lucas for all of those 15 years, and I couldn't see a script for the longest time for The Force Awakens, because they were still probably having meeting upon meeting and having meetings about meetings trying to hammer this storyline out. He continued, so it was the polar opposite way of working. It was all about control and fear and paranoia. Not that Lucasfilm, we had some of that. I mean, it wasn't like it was heaven on earth, but it was far and away like day compared to night. It was just so much easier, and we didn't torture the licensees. Well, yeah, because we wondered why it seemed like there wasn't a lot of merchandise for the Rise of Skywalker, and the rumor is they were still working on the damn thing right up until release. Because they were trying to salvage this mess of a movie. He continued to compare and contrast Disney with Lucas's style of management. Some of them could come in and read the script. Not everybody, but the head person, whoever needed to read it for that company could read it, so they knew what was going on. And so there was just a lot of cooperation, a lot of sharing of information, a lot of autonomy. If I decided a book was done and good, it was done. It was published. Disney, everything. And I can tell you, as someone who's worked closely with Disney over the years, I mean, we have managers upon managers, layers of management, layers of approvals, approval process. Everything has to go through multiple channels of approval. I will be honest, it is shocking that Disney gets anything done. Now, they can move quickly when they want to, but it is shocking that anything gets done because it can take forever to get approval. And that's just the way Disney runs the company. And look, Disney Star Wars, is not George Lucas Star Wars. It's changed. Just like I was, saying before about how Wizards of the Coast Dungeons and Dragons is not Gary Gygax's Dungeons and Dragons. It might have some surface level similarities, but the heart of it is missing because it's now it's just a spoke in a big corporate wheel, and it's going to operate as such. And this is why we're seeing all this weird ass these weird ass corporate decisions made for this brand, because George Lucas wouldn't have done this. He wouldn't have rolled out the High Republic with this big elaborate, corporate marketing push and the whiteboard with bullet points that need to be. Yeah, Star Wars has gone corporate, and Disney, we know how they operate, and it's not George Lucas's Star Wars. People who worked with George Lucas are like, this isn't George's Star Wars anymore. So now, now even the mainstream media is coming out and being like, hey, it's Kathleen Kennedy's fault. We've got Scott Mendelson on Forbes coming out and throwing shade at Disney Star Wars because he really hated The Rise of Skywalker. He loved The Last Jedi, but he hated The Rise of Skywalker. Again, I haven't seen it yet. We haven't watched The Rise of Skywalker. I don't know if I have. We actually watched Hamilton before we watched The Rise of Skywalker. That's where it kind of ranks, I guess, on our, I don't care. Star Wars, to me, is dead. I like The Mandalorian, but I gotta tell you, even when the second season drops, I don't know if I'm gonna be rushing to watch it. I didn't rush to watch The Mandalorian when it first came out because I was so jaded about Star Wars. And the first couple episodes I didn't warm up to. It took me a while to get back into it. And I'm like, yeah, this is actually pretty okay. But when the second season of The Mandalorian drops, I know it's going to have tinkering. I think they were pretty much autonomous. I think Disney kind of let them do their own thing, kind of George Lucas style. And now that Baby Yoda is popular, they're going to rein it in. Disney's going to put their fingerprints all over it, and they're going to freaking ruin it. I guarantee you, season 2 of The Mandalorian is probably going to be a shit show. I have this feeling, because every time Disney smells money, they choke the life out of the cow, and then it goes to the slaughterhouse and they go find another cow. That's just how they work, because it is a big corporation. This isn't Uncle Walt's company anymore. Uncle Walt and his 9 old men, putting out movies and etc. Because Walt Disney worked very much like George Lucas, where he had kind of his inner circle and he did his thing, and it was overseen by Walt. It's a mess of a company at this point. It is basically all the worst of Hollywood all in one place. That's kind of where current year Disney is. And this is why in animation, even, people are lining up to get out. They're like, okay, fine, Disney wants us to do a show. We'll do a show. Look at Alex Hirsch, and he's like, let's get the hell out of Disney and go someplace else. So Star Wars, it's Kathleen Kennedy's fault. The sequel trilogy failed, according to some fans. We've got this on Showbiz cheat sheet, like this is an actual story. So everybody's wondering what's going to happen. Is Kathleen Kennedy going to step down or what? Yeah, I think she is. I think she is next year. And we said before, and people fought with us. When we first started the channel, I think it was around the time, well, it was a little bit before her contract got renewed. And when we started talking about Star Wars. And people argued with us. They're like, she's going to get fired. They're going to fire her. It's like, no, you don't understand the power of the dark side. You don't understand how Disney works, how Disney thinks. They're not going to get rid of her because it looks bad. They'll double, triple down. They'll keep her on staff, and they'll let her take credit for anything that Lucasfilm accidentally gets right, but they will never blame her for anything that Lucasfilm does wrong. The Mandalorian is a great example of that, where there does seem to be factions within Lucasfilm, some who are George loyalists or at least admire George's vision. The same thing's going on in Disney. There are people who are old school, like Walt heads. They love Walt Disney, what he was about. And then there are people who came into Disney who know Disney as this big corporate entity. They don't remember Walt Disney or what Walt Disney was actually about. And they clash. And we see it all the time at Disney. So, yeah, they're not going to just shit can her, throw her out in the street. She'll step down. She'll go do her own thing. I'm hearing rumors she's going to start her own production company. That's, she's in her, going to be 70? Yeah, she'll probably do something like that, but they'll never completely get rid of her, or she'll go start her own production company and then Disney will distribute those movies to save face, because it would look really bad to throw Kathleen Kennedy out on her ass, and they're not going to do it. So even inside the tragic, which used to be a pretty reputable theme park blog has now kind of degenerated into gossip. And they're even talking about how Disney is going to reset the Star Wars trilogy. I don't think it's going to happen. I think they will just step over it. They're going to step over it, not touch the sequel era, and move on. But, you know, Scott Mendelson, he cannot get enough of shitting on Rise of Skywalker. You know, so now that even the media is kind of turning on it, but I don't know where things are going to go. J.W. Rinsler is very interesting. I think we're going to see more former George loyalist Lucasfilm employees step forward. I hope he doesn't get sued. You know, I don't think Disney really can sue him, but it is interesting. I think, especially as the luster wears off, the honeymoon is over, whatever you want to call it, with Disney and the media regarding Star Wars, I think we're going to see more of this. We're going to see more old school Lucasfilm employees stepping out and being like, yeah, here's how things changed when Disney took over. And it doesn't surprise any of us who've worked around Disney that they just have this uncanny knack for taking a good thing and choking the ever-loving life out of it, and then moving on to the next IP and choking the life out of it, etc., etc. And that is something they can do because up until recently they've had unlimited money, but I think that's going to end this year because they're hurting and they're going to have to start making decisions that make them more money. So I'm going to wrap this one up. Check out Disney Star Wars is Dumb. Check out Bounding into Comics. We'll talk to you guys later. Hey guys, thanks for watching Clownfish TV. Please consider supporting the channel. Go to clownfishsupport.com. That's clownfishsupport.com. And if you want to join our community, go to clownfishtalk.com. That's clownfishtalk.com. Please subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. We will talk to you next time.